My name is Larry Martin. I do World War II interviews, and today we're going to talk to a World War II man from the 9th Infantry Division, Bill Rappleye. We're in Lower Michigan, and it's the fall of 2014. And I hope whoever gets to watch any of the films I do will understand what kind of sacrifices and suffering the men and women of the World War II generation did to give us our freedoms, folks. Don't take our freedoms for granted. They didn't just happen. Somebody suffered for them. Bill, if you would, just start off and tell us where you were born, what year, and then go right into your training.
Okay. I was born in 1926, September 11, and I went to Jackson High School. I graduated, and I was only 18 at the time. My brothers were both in service, so I wanted to get in service and catch up with my brothers, who were both older, and I became 18 on September 11 of 44, and I asked for immediate induction or didn't have any delay en route, so I was admitted, sworn into the Army on October 4 of 44.
And where did you go for your training?
I went to what was then Camp Hood. Camp Hood was out in the desert of Texas.
In Texas, yeah.
And
Fort Hood today.
There were about 65,000 trainees at that camp. And the barracks were all brand new. And we were there going through our cycle, which was a 17-week cycle of basic training. The Battle of the Bulge came along, and they cut our cycle down to 15 weeks.
Tell us the reason why that was.
Well, they wanted bodies over in Europe, and then we got in the pipeline.
Now, what was your training like? So it was 50. You still had 15 weeks of training.
15 weeks of training, and there was no physical part of it of any way, shape, or form. The farthest I marched was 11 miles with a light pack. That means just this harness over your field pack over your shoulders with nothing in it but your raincoat. And so we didn't have we were never confronted with anything that was physically difficult. The Army did not want anybody to break down with sore feet or lame backs. They wanted bodies, and they wanted them right now.
Right now, yeah.
So,
what was your boot camp or your training like? Did you only fire the M1, or did you use the 1903 Springfield?
we used the M1 rifle. We had a M1 issued to us.
The Garand, yeah.
We had to take care of it. It wasn't, of course, a new rifle. It was pretty beat up. And that's the only thing we fired. We never fired a bazooka. We never fired the BAR. We never fired a machine gun.
And later you turned out to be a BAR man.
Yes.
Okay. So you basically fired the M1. Is there anything else about training you'd like to talk about?
Well, we had a lot of fun, I thought.
Tell us
it
about
wasn't
it.
much of a challenge.
Well, tell us about it. That's good to hear that somebody had fun.
We didn't have much of a social life outside of camp, but I did go to Dallas one weekend, and wasn't a weekend, one time we went over to Waco, and in Waco, Yankee soldiers were not very welcome to those little Baptist girls. We were avoided pretty much. Scorned, I believe.
The Southerners,
is a better word.
The Southerners didn't like the Yankees?
No, they did not. And that pretty much went through the whole time you're in the service. And basically I soldiered with what I call Appalachians, from Alabama, the Virginias, the Carolinas, Kentucky and Tennessee, Arkansas. Those were the infantry soldiers for the most part. And they were damn good soldiers.
I was going to say, I've heard some amazing things about the young Southern soldier in World War II.
Yeah, they set the tone for all the rest of us. Because they were rough, they could sleep out in the mud, and they were basically, I won't say fearless, they had fear like everyone else, but they were able to operate with the fear and do what they were supposed to do. I have
Very good soldiers.
I have respect for what I call the Appalachians.
Yes.
And they had a vulgarity language about them, and you'd think, well, every other word was vulgar and this and that, but it was almost Shakespearean, if you think about it. Their language was a lot of meaning and a lot of words that they kind of corrupted.
Yeah.
Like, for instance,
Don't-
crack that window. That man opened the window a little
yeah.
bit. They had a bunch of those
Yeah, crack the window, yeah.
idioms.
Yeah. I know a friend of mine said that he had grown up in Milwaukee in the Marine Corps, and he went to Marine Corps in '42, and he said he'd never been around a rifle. He said he could shoot it reasonably well. He said, them Southern boys, he swears they could hit a rabbit in the left eye on a dead run.
Well, not that good, but good.
Yeah, he said they were good.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else about training you'd like to talk about?
Well, no. Basically, it's the lack of training, and we went through. They issued us a complete set of uniforms, 2 pair of this and 2 pair of that, and we had to turn all that in before we went overseas, and we got 2 new pairs of shoes and 2 new pairs of pants and a sweater and a field jacket, and we were outfitted twice within 6 months. But
So, where did you go? Did you go to like Fort Dix to go out over to the East Coast?
we went to Fort Meade, Maryland.
Fort Meade, okay.
Yeah. And we were there about a week, maybe a little less than a week, and we go to Washington, D.C. every evening. And the thing about Washington, D.C., although liquor was rationed, all the drugstores, they had bottles of whiskey pyramided up. There'd be hundreds of bottles in the window.
Really?
Yeah, boy, oh boy. I wasn't much of a drinker, and a little beer was about my speed.
Yeah. So did the girls there treat you a little bit nicer than the Southern girls?
Oh yeah, we were treated all very well, and the streets were full of little black guys that wanted to shine your boots, and we had those darn combat boots with the inside out and the outside in. Well, they had the purpose, but there was no way you could shine a pair of combat boots. They had that rough leather on the outside, and so these little guys would put
on their hands
some shoe polish on there, and then they'd spit on it, and then they'd take their they'd take their claws and give you a little bit. Maybe your toes were shiny, but that's the only thing they could get shiny. Whereas the paratroopers, they had those beautiful jump boots that were something that were a little extra. The infantry kind of was envious of that, I think.
I know that I've talked to many paratroopers, and you didn't want to be. If they were calling anybody that wasn't a paratrooper wearing them, there was probably going to be some friction.
Yeah, we never fraternized with the paratroops. They were different, and
How? Now, when you say they were different?
well, they were better trained. The
By
paratroopers trained 2 years before they went overseas.
Yes.
And that made a whole bunch of difference.
You bet.
And because they had rigorous training, if you were not extra physical, you just didn't make it.
You get washed out.
You got washed out.
Yeah.
And a lot of them got hurt making jumps. And
I've got a fellow, Fred Balo, talks about jumping in England just to show some brass on a rock, big rocks.
Yeah.
Said they broke people's legs all over the place.
Yeah.
They were very fit, though. He said they ran. Every paratrooper I've ever talked to said from the minute they'd get into training, everything was at a run.
Yeah.
They never walked anywhere.
Right. That was what we call fast time.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything else about training before you? Now you're at Fort Meade, Maryland. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before you go overseas?
Well, when I was at Fort Meade, we'd go to the PX, and some of the soldiers were returning from Europe, and I heard a couple of them talk about BAR, and one said if you hit a BAR, you could hold down a whole battalion.
Yes, I've heard that.
So when I went overseas, I thought, well, that's what I want to do. I want to get these Germans, you know, you're all fired up about it. So I asked to take that BAR, and then they were glad to give it up.
Well, it's a very heavy piece of equipment. It weighs about 20 pounds.
It weighs 20 pounds, and then the magazine, which has 20 rounds in it, a full magazine is 2 pounds. So together
It weighs 22 pounds.
22 pounds together. And I was just off the farm basically, and in pretty good shape. And it was not overwhelming to carry that thing around. I mean, it wasn't a big deal.
How did you go overseas? On a ship?
Yes, we went over. We sailed out of Boston.
Now, are we talking early 45, January or so of 45?
February.
February of 45,
Yeah.
okay.
We sailed out of Boston on a ship called the Wakefield. It held about 6,000 soldiers, and I was about the sickest kid on that boat.
No, isn't seasick awful?
I got sick in the harbor.
Yeah.
That stinky paint. We were down in D compartment with you could hear the generators or the fans of the motors running to circulate the air down there.
Yeah.
And those motors never stopped. I guess we'd have suffocated if they had. And so it took 6 days to get over to Liverpool.
And what was it like out to sea? Were you sick the whole 6 days?
I was sick the whole 6 days.
I've been seasick when I was in the Navy. It's a terrible feeling.
I tried to, after about the 3rd day, you got to have something to eat. So the mess was right in the bottom of the boat, right in the middle of the boat. So I went down and I had something to eat. And I felt, not too bad. And then as we were going up those steps, they had a chain for a guard, for a handrail. I took a hold of that chain and it was all full of gravy and grease.
Oh.
I got sick all over again. So I didn't get over it. They said once you hit land, you will get over this.
Yeah.
Well, we were there just hours before we got on our train and went to southern England.
Yeah.
And when the train stopped during the day, I would look out at the landscape, and the land just kept flowing around. My eyes couldn't focus on anything.
Really?
So
Yeah.
I didn't get out of seasick till I got over to Le Havre, France.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had an uneventful crossing of the Channel, which was about the worst night I spent in the service.
Tell us about that.
Keep warm on a boilerplate deck.
Yeah.
Just lay down and try to keep warm. And there wasn't any, whatever you had in your bag, you could wrap around you if you
The
could.
sailors didn't have any blankets for you guys?
No, we didn't. There's an LST. I don't know if there were
Okay.
any sailors. They never showed up. They were probably down in their cabin somewhere having a good time playing poker or
Oh,
something.
no, they were working in the boiler rooms, and they have just the same job you had.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't, if that ship's underway, they're at their duty stations.
Yeah. Well, we got over to Le Havre and jumped right off that LST and marched up to a camp replacement depot. I guess it was from World War I.
Sure.
And we were just there overnight, and the next day we were on a train. And,
Now, did you know about the Battle of the Bulge and some of these other battles?
well, we heard about it, yeah. We heard about it. And also, it was kind of believed that Hitler had even one more
One more push.
before he would give up.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, didn't happen. Once the Battle of the Bulge was over, it was all downhill. They're looking up and we're looking down, and
You had the good ground.
we had the high ground for the most part, and we had more artillery, we had more tanks, we had more of everything. And Hitler should have given up way back. He should have given up when the invasion came along, but he just would not do it, and
Yeah.
so that he just pulled his people to the terrible. And of course, when we would go into a German town,
Now, let's start from Le Havre. Where did you go into your first battles?
well,
And then I'd like to talk about when you said you go into a German town. I just want to keep it in. So we're at February of 1945.
okay, my division,
sequence.
the 8th Division,
8th or 9th? You were in
the
the 9th.
9th Division, was the first division in force, the full division across the Rhine River. That's where I joined the division.
Now, were you up in northern part of Germany, up by Aachen?
Well, I went through Aachen on my way to, see, Aachen is south of the Rhine. And I went through Aachen, which was just a pile of bricks. Rubble had been mowed or been scooped out so that the trucks could pass. And then we went through that section of land between the German border and the Rhine River. And all those little towns were all broke up and busted up. Even the haystacks were busted up. They didn't want any Germans hiding out in the haystacks, so they
Well, and you know what else they'd do with those haystacks? They'd put artillery in them.
Yeah.
They'd have artillery in it.
Yeah. So when I joined my outfit, they were across the Rhine about 2 miles, maybe 2 or 3.
To the east of the Rhine.
Yeah.
Now, the 9th had been in a lot of combat. You were just so young, you were a replacement. But the 9th had been in combat since what, North Africa or Italy?
They were North Africa and Sicily.
Okay.
And they were pulled out and sent to England. And they didn't invade. They were on D plus either 4 or D plus 6.
Okay.
And they were at St. Lo, which was where the carpet bombing took place.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to get a hole through the German lines.
So they fought at St. Lo, yeah?
Yeah, and then I believe they were the first division in Belgium, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
They were not the first division in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And
so these little towns were just destroyed.
they were, yes, and even the larger towns, there was a town called Düren and a Dortmund, and even those towns were beat up. They were blown up.
Did you by chance see Cologne? Did you see Cologne, Germany?
Yes, I went through Cologne.
Tell us about Cologne. The reason is I just interviewed 2 Germans that lived there during the entire war. I'm just curious what you saw of Cologne.
Well, of course, I'm on the back of what they call a 6-by, and it's with about 20 other soldiers stacked in there. So you're back in the back of the truck and you're looking around. Going up to Cologne, it was beautiful country, and we're driving through what was the Siegfried Line, and these pillboxes were huge, but they'd all been blown up by the engineers.
Yeah.
And then we went into Cologne, and it was just rubble. Rubble, rubble, rubble. That's all I remember about Cologne.
Now, to give people an idea, Cologne, according to Hubert Lintz, who was the German I interviewed, he said it was about 800,000 people, so it was a big city.
It was a good-sized city. And if you remember when Germany organized after the war, they had a gentleman by the name of Adenauer.
Konrad Adenauer.
He was from Cologne. But it was just like, you couldn't believe all this destruction.
Yes.
And then we went across the Rhine on a pontoon bridge. The railroad bridge had been blown into the water. It was in the water. And we were upstream maybe 300 feet from that railroad bridge where the pontoon bridge
was constructed.
Across.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, are we talking February or March of 45 now?
talking March by this time.
Okay.
And then when you join your outfit, well, you're the low man on the totem pole, what you expect. And you, they look at you like, where'd we get this jerk? Where'd we get this guy?
Yeah.
Where's he from?
Yeah.
And we went through that for a little while.
I have a question. I've read before that some of the older guys didn't even want to know the replacements. Did you feel that way, that the old guys weren't very friendly? The reason I've read is that they knew a lot of them were going to die.
Yeah.
They were young, they were green.
I didn't ever get that feeling.
Good.
I thought in my own platoon, right, in my own squad, I thought we got along pretty well, but at the end of the war, I was an old-timer, believe it or not.
After 3 months.
Even the replacements at the end of the war were substantial.
Yeah.
We had a guy that went back because he was nuts, you know, he couldn't handle it, and was sent back. And I don't know, I wasn't privy to all that, who was sent back and for what reason, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't be there, and there'd be somebody else to take his place.
Yes.
We never had a full squad. The squad is 12 soldiers, and the most we ever had was 8 or 9,
Okay.
and sometimes 5 and 6, because we were still losing men, believe it or not.
Well, sure, I know in March. So where was your first combat at, Bill?
My first combat was just over the Rhine River, and one of the things we had to do was, see, a division is made up of 3 regiments, and one of the regiments was the 47th. So myself and another soldier had to go down and make what they call contact with the 47th. It was just
47th Regiment?
regiment.
Uh-huh.
I remember what the password was. The password was lightning, and the answer was Thunderbird. And we went down this road about a mile, and then we were challenged, and we gave them the sign, and they gave us the cosign, and then we went back to our slit trench or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the 47th was more famous than the 60th. I was in the 60th. But the first real battle we were in, we captured a town called Horhausen, spelled with an H-O-R, not W. And that's when, at the threshold, I had an assistant BAR man, and his name was Espinozo. I'm pretty sure he was a Spanish kid, but I'm not sure. He could have been an American Indian.
Sure.
And he got killed. I couldn't have reached out and touched him, but within
5 feet.
15 or 20 feet from him.
Yeah.
And he was on the road, and I had gotten off the road in a ditch. And when the machine gun opened, it killed him.
Right in his stomach?
Yeah. And I remember him laying there crying, and we had to keep on going because our objective was to get into a house down the bottom of the hill.
Was he dead before you guys left?
You know,
You were just walking, yeah.
We just kept on going and didn't talk much about it.
Did anybody stay to treat him?
Pardon me?
Did anyone stay, a medic, to treat him?
Well, I'm sure that we had a great medic.
Medics.
I'll tell you about our medic. He was a great guy, Southerner. But Espinozo was laying there, and we had to just keep on going. And we got down to this house, a lone house, and that was our objective for our squad, to get in that house. And I took my BIR, knocked out a window, and I threw a hand grenade in. And I guess what they told me later, that a couple of little girls were killed. So
Oh, God.
that didn't really make you feel too good. But I did kill one German, and I always thought, boy, I feel bad about that. He had salt and pepper, gray hair, and I thought he looked just like my dad. It isn't much of a thrill to kill a guy that reminds you of your father.
Did he have a weapon? He
Yeah,
he would have shot you?
He had a weapon, but he was in the what they call the Folks Army.
Folks Guard, yeah.
They raised that at
Folks
the end,
drum or whatever they call
and
it.
he, I'm sure, didn't want to fight, and we just walked up. Almost, he was maybe 10 feet from me, and he was laying down. And of course, we were scared. We didn't know.
What's it like to have to shoot somebody from 10 feet with a 30-06? That must be...
Well, if I shot him with a BAR.
Oh, BAR, oh my God.
I put about 10 rounds in him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, does a BAR shoot a 30-06?
Yes, same
Same round as the M1?
Same round as the M1.
Just fully automatic?
It can be fully automatic,
Or
it can be semi-automatic. I would use it on full automatic, but I would just pull the trigger a little bit, shoot 2 times, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Because if you pull that back and let it go, there's 20 rounds gone, and if you're not shooting at anything,
Yeah, waste.
it's wasteful.
Yeah. So, did you see any, now this late in the war, the 9th Division, even though you were so young, you're just getting into it by March of 45, but they'd been fighting since late 42, early 43. Did you see any combat fatigue or people that were just nuts?
Yes. We had one guy came into the outfit, and he was a small guy, and he talked about when before he jumped on the boat, he'd laid every prostitute in the city of New York. He was, a tough talking guy, and I thought, boy, this guy is a real tough guy.
Yeah.
And we were kind of pinned down. It was in that area where the Germans had their Winter Olympics. We were in a wheat field and going uphill a little bit. And there was a half track, a German half track with a 20 millimeter it's an anti-aircraft gun, but they were using it as anti-personnel gun. And they were levied on, our whole platoon was laid out on this grass, and you can't hide it because the grass was only 2 inches high. You couldn't get down far enough to get into the mud far enough.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, someone said, get the bazooka up here. And I remember this guy saying it just like it was yesterday. He says, Lieutenant, he says, my hands won't work. So he disappeared. And before the war was over,
back.
we were in the Harz Mountains, and we were guarding a Y on the road, and there was a tank destroyer there, and we were sort of in a perimeter guarding that tank destroyer. And the Germans snuck up on it, and they had what they call a Panzerfaust, which was like our bazooka, only it was more effective. And it missed the tank destroyer, but it exploded right in front of it. And boy, that'll wake you up. That was a lot of noise. Oh. He had come back.
The kid whose hands would not work.
Yeah, and no, that was the same guy.
Yeah.
He come back, and I see the tanker had gotten out of the tank for some reason, and he was around the back of the tank. He was looking around, and the guy says, don't send me back up. He says, I'm shooting my own men. Huh? Now you think, that's the last I saw of him? No. There's another part of that story. The next winter, I was in Paris, and I was in either a YMCA.
Now the war is over.
Yeah, the war's over. It's a USO club, or it was a communal shower, a big room with maybe 5 or 10 shower nozzles on it. And I'm taking a shower. I look right. This is the same guy. He's the guy that was in our outfit, and he's going home. Now, where he had been in the meantime, he didn't tell me or didn't elaborate, but he got to go home in February, and I
You probably didn't get home until July or August.
Until August, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was quite a story. And we had guys that just shouldn't have been in the service. We had a big Swede, and God, he couldn't function, and
Because of fear or what?
yeah, I guess, I don't know. They just couldn't handle that combat, but whatever it was, fear.
Have you ever heard of a private named Eddie Slavic?
Yeah, I heard.
At the time when this was in March and April of 45, had you heard of Eddie Slavic?
Oh
then?
no, I never heard of it until after.
Okay.
Somebody.
For the audience, Eddie Slavic was the only man we executed. And I'm going to use the word for cowardice. He just wouldn't fight.
It couldn't function
Yeah,
under
he
the
couldn't
circumstances.
function. The reason I ask if you had ever heard of it, had these guys that wouldn't function, couldn't function, had they heard of it then? But you had not heard anything about it.
I hadn't heard of that.
It was made as an example. I mean, he didn't do anything that others hadn't done. He got in a foxhole and said, I'm not coming out.
Yeah.
And he thought he'd go to jail. He'd been in jail a lot all his life for petty things. And they tied him right up to a stake and executed him. We executed many for rape and murder, but we only executed him for that.
Yeah.
And I just was curious if your outfit had ever heard of that, if that would have motivated this kid, this New York tough guy.
Oh, I don't think it could have motivated that guy. He was a bolo, so to speak.
Now, what does that mean?
Just foul, just just inept, you know.
Tough acting and no good for
Yeah, he had a
anything.
big mouth in a way. For a little guy, he talked big, but he didn't have what it. I don't think everybody's afraid, and I'm as afraid as anyone. But you could, I say to myself, I could still function.
Could function.
I could shoot if there was something to be shot at. And sometimes you could see something, and sometimes you can't. And sometimes, well, the other, after, speaking of court-martialed people, after the war, I was sent to a disciplinary training center guarding American court-martialed prisoners. Most of the inmates of that prison were in the so-called Red Ball
Yes.
training, and they were
Red Ball Express.
taking part of the cargo and
They were selling
it
on
on the black market, and that's where most of them. But they had about 8 condemned men there. About 8 condemned men.
For murders and rapes?
I think mostly rapes.
Yes.
I think mostly rapes. I didn't get into it. They didn't have to train. All these in the disciplinary training center, you had to train 8 hours a day, period. I mean, marching back and forth for no reason, just back and forth. The condemned men, they didn't have to train. They dyed some OD uniforms for them. They had a purple uniform of some kind, and they were looked up to in a way. But
Look up to.
well, they didn't have to hop in the moon, so to speak.
Because they were going to be hung.
The regular trainees had to march all day long.
Now hold on,
8 hours.
you were a trainee, like a prison guard?
I'm talking about the inmates.
The inmates, okay.
The inmates had to march 8 hours a day.
Okay.
And it was, they might have had a class once in a while, but mostly it was physical.
Yeah.
The
Condemned.
men sat on their duff all the time. They didn't have to do any training.
Now, were you a guard?
Yeah, we were, when we were down in Marseille, I was a disciplinarian. That is to say, I'd have a company of prisoners. You kind of have to oversee that during the day, and you had to inspect their barracks and make sure that their canteens were clean and that they kind of were neat as far as their uniforms, whatever they had. And if you gave them a gig, then they had
What's a gig?
Well, it was a demerit.
Okay.
And then they had to go out and train at night, and they called it hopping at the moon. And that was the same thing at night as it was during the day, back and forth marching. So you thought more than once before you gave somebody a gig.
Yeah.
Put them to that much
Now,
punishment.
were any of the men executed while you were there?
No. But they did have they had a place, they had railroad ties vertical. And that was, you could put your guy in front of those railroad ties and then shoot him. That was established. We then moved
Firing posts.
firing posts, or whatever they call it. Then we moved all those prisoners in one train load and took them to Würzburg, Germany. And at Würzburg, all the things, the officers got the idea they needed a scaffold. So they got some German carpenters, probably POWs, and they started building a scaffold right outside. There was no prison, it was all barbed wire, right outside.
No wall,
the
just
condemned
barbed wire.
men. They were building this scaffold. One guy tried to suicide just on the barbed wire. He just wanted to.
Want to be shot?
Well, be hung if they had a scaffold. They was talking about hanging people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, and I got out of there, luckily, about that time.
Now, was this because you didn't have enough points to go home because you were a young man?
Right. When the
Okay.
war was over, I only had about 15 points, maybe
Right. You
20.
needed 85 to
So
go.
you got a point for each battle star.
Right.
Then you got, I think, 2 points for every month overseas, and a point for every month that you were in the service. Well, the war is over in May, and I got
Right.
in October, and that's what 9 months.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. Well, the war is still going. You talked about some of the fights you were in. Were there others? Move over. More. There you go. Were there other battles then you were involved in before the end of the war, before you became a guard? Was there other fighting you were involved in?
Yes, we were at the end of the war. The German SS, they gathered up whoever they could gather up, and they went into the Harz Mountains and put up a defense. And they were pretty stubborn about the SS's they were mean and they were good. I mean, as far as fighting is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you take prisoners of the SS? Because I've heard some units would not take prisoners of the SS.
Well, I think we would have if we could have. One night we were sleeping in the woods, and I was off the trail about 50 feet, and then there was a machine gun set up right in the trail, and this SS crew come along, and that machine gunner, he goes click, and it wouldn't fire. Pulled it back again, click, it wouldn't fire. Pulled it back the third time, and the SS captain was right on him, and he shot. And the next morning, we went over, and he had taken his jacket off, this SS guy, and there was bullet holes and blood in the sleeve, and he got out of there. I don't know.
Now hold on, the SS guys took his coat off?
Right after he was shot. He probably wanted to put a tourniquet
Well,
on his arm.
who shot him?
Our machine gunner.
Well, I thought you said the machine gun wouldn't work, but it finally
Twice
did. I see, the third time it did.
The third time it worked. By that time, this SS guy was right on top of him.
And he shot the American?
No.
No, the
American
American.
shot him.
Okay.
And then he took off his jacket. And I should have picked up those, they had those little death heads on there.
Oh, yes, death heads,
I
yeah.
should have cut those off for souvenirs. But
Yeah.
what the hell, you just want to get out of there.
Yeah. So did they kill all the SS men, or did they get away?
They took the next morning. A lot of those guys just laid down in the woods. We went as soon as it got daylight. We went forward and we captured 3 or 4. The rest of them apparently had hightailed back.
But you didn't execute them?
Oh no.
Because I've heard stories about, and I've never had a man say he saw it. I've either read it or heard it, that because the SS was so reviled, so detested, that they wouldn't take SS prisoners. But when you actually saw them, they were taken prisoner like any other German soldier.
Yeah.
Okay.
It works both ways. If they're going to fight to the death, that's tougher for you.
Yeah.
If they're inclined to give up, that's better for you.
Yes.
I always figured a German prisoner was a good German because he wasn't
Fanatical enough.
He wasn't fighting us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a plus. We
Yes.
diminished their army and put them in a stockade somewhere and keep on going.
Now, was the battle in the Harz Mountain? Was that some of your roughest fighting?
Yeah, it was, because we had guys. You see a man hit with a 20 millimeter, which is a gun that the bullet explodes. And
Okay.
He's hit anywhere in the midsection. He's just laid out. You can get a good anatomy lesson by studying those corpses. You can see everything.
And you saw these men get hit by these 20 millimeters?
I didn't see him get hit. I saw him
The afterward. Yeah, the after. Yeah. So the Germans had the 20 millimeters?
They had the 20 millimeters, which they were using as a machine gun, basically. It wasn't full automatic, but
Now, isn't a 20 millimeter a good 6 or 8 inches long?
Yes, and it's
an
got
inch, about an inch in diameter?
yes, and it's got an explosive bullet in it. When the bullet hits, there's an explosion.
I see. So it's not just a straight through bullet.
Right.
It breaks apart.
Right.
What was the land like? How high in the mountains were you? Was it really cold?
They call it the mountains. I didn't see, it wasn't, I've been out in the Rockies a little bit. It wasn't like that.
Okay.
I call it big hills.
Foothills.
They call it mountains, but it's a part of Germany, the Harz Mountains.
Yes, I've heard of
There's
them.
a Harz Mountain, used to be birdseed or something.
Okay.
That name.
Yes, I've seen that.
But they weren't mountains. It wasn't too far from Berlin, really. Berlin is flat. That part of the country is quite.
So you got pretty close to Berlin in your fighting?
I got to within 18 kilometers of Berlin.
12 miles.
Yeah, when we meant to meet the Russians.
Now, is there more fighting? I didn't mean to get the cart before the horse. Is there more fighting you'd like to tell the people about? I'd like to have you tell me about any of the fighting you were involved in.
Well, I don't think anything too specific.
Just a lot of combat. Now, were you still losing a lot of men? Or were they pretty well depleted and unorganized by this time?
Yeah, we weren't losing at the end. We weren't losing, although we did suffer some casualties. The second platoon got a new lieutenant, second lieutenant, and he got killed the first damn day. And he almost deserved it. The kid had a Luger pistol.
A kid, a German kid or an American?
No, American kid. And
Okay.
he got it away from him. Took it away from
The
him.
lieutenant took it away?
Yeah, and that day he died. He got killed. So everybody thought justice had been done.
Because he took the Luger away?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we had casualties.
But they weren't organized. The Germans weren't as organized. They were just running backwards towards Berlin.
You'd get into a pocket of Germans, so to speak.
Yeah.
They decide to defend a village, or they decide to defend an area. And we were being shipped all over. But you asked me about how far we got. We got to within 18 kilometers of Berlin. And that's when we met the Russians.
At the Elbe?
Well, I guess it was the area of the Elbe.
Okay.
The river we were on was the Moldau, but that was afterwards. And the Moldau, I believe, is a tributary of the Elbe, and the Elbe could be a tributary of the Moldau. I'm not sure which is which, but...
Didn't you say you were one of the very few enlisted men there? Tell us about that, because that's pretty historic. I've seen pictures of you, the groups running towards each other. Tell us about that.
Well, let's see. One, if I were inclined to do any boasting, I would boast a little bit about that event. Don Ains, who wrote his memoirs and who retired as a full colonel, and I were in the same squad, and we were good friends, and we did a lot of things together. So battalion decided they wanted to go up and meet the Russians. So other than the Jeep drivers, Don and I were riding shotgun. We were the only enlisted men on that trip.
Were you like a bodyguard for anybody?
Well, we were just riding in the Jeep with our, I suppose they figured if they got pinned down, we'd help them out maybe, I don't know. But they were all officers. And we get up to a village.
How high a rank? I mean, all young officers, or were they colonels and generals?
They were young.
Young.
Yeah.
Up to a major, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
And we got to within 18 kilometers of Berlin. We're waiting there for something. Don and I were on an outpost making sure they weren't getting surrounded or whatever. And so a couple of downtown, they had picked up 2 German stragglers. The Germans wanted to give up at that time, particularly wanted to give up to the Americans.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't want to give up to the Russians. So when
Why would that be?
the Russians just had a terrible reputation for being ultra ruthless, and we had a reputation for being, New York Jews, or we were Texas cowboys, or we were Chicago gangsters. That was how we were categorized.
Mm-hmm.
But so in come a Russian sergeant and another Russian soldier, and they asked these officers if they could have these 2 German prisoners. And the officer said, "Oh yeah, go ahead, you can have it." Now, this Russian sergeant took those two prisoners around where I could see, about from here to that mailbox, or to that milk house out there,
About 50 yards?
50 yards, maybe a little more. And he took his pistol out, and he shot him, bang, run the head, snap in the other head. One of them must have fluttered a little bit. He reached over and shot him again. I've always maintained that those officers should have been court-martialed for
Yes.
this.
Yes.
There is no excuse that those Germans who had surrendered should be executed. That was what we permitted that, and I always thought that was wrong.
And you saw this?
I saw it with my own eyes, yeah, and I never forget it. And Don Ains, in his book, he memorizes that event, because he and I were on an outpost together. That's another thing I haven't mentioned, that Don Ains stayed in, he was from New Rochelle, New York. Nice young guy. We were about 6 months apart in age, and we had gotten in the service about the same time. And he opted to stay in the Army, worked his way up, and ultimately got a commission. And he worked his way up to full colonel. He was in there 29 years, and then he retired, and he wrote this memoir book, which is a good read.
I read it. It's very good. Yeah. Back to the Russians. Did you think they were going to take them out and shoot them? Did you saw the American officers turn them over?
No, I didn't see him turn them over.
Okay.
That was kind of hearsay, but I did see him bring these two Germans around and pulled out his pistol, the sergeant did, and shot them both.
And nobody tried to stop them?
No, they were kind of aiding and abetting as far as I was concerned.
Yes. I'm just making some notes here. Is there anything else about the meeting with the Russians? Did you feel they were our ally, which of course they were, or did you feel they were a threat to us, or didn't think about it? You were an 18-year-old kid.
Well, I thought they were kind of low-grade people, and I saw them after the war up there. They were confiscating all of the porcelain sinks and toilet bowls and whatever, and carrying it back to Russia. They never had anything like that, apparently.
Yes.
And so, and then there was a dairy herd there, and they were butchering those Holstein cows pretty fast, I suppose, for food.
Yes.
Which I guess I wouldn't blame them for it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the Russian soldier was much of a guy. He could have been. They lived under Stalin, and they were treated poorly.
Yes.
And then they got into the war, and the Germans treated them poorly. So when they got the upper hand on the Germans, they just
merciless.
They went crazy.
Merciless, yeah.
You know, but
is there anything else about your fighting, or about the service, or about World War II you'd like to talk about?
Yes. After the war, I was sent to an MP outfit, and as mentioned before, we were guarding court-martialed American soldiers. And one day I looked on the, which I hated. I would have rather have done kitchen duty and cleaned the whatever than to go out into a tower and stay 4 hours in the middle of the night for no good reason.
Yeah.
And on the bulletin board it says, "You want to go to college?" And God, I'll do anything. I signed up and forgot all about it, because my morale at that point in time was pretty low.
Now, was this July or August? June, July?
It would be in the It'd be in the early winter of 45.
Oh, you mean, okay, so the fighting, you mean during the fighting still?
It was no, fighting was over then. See, the war ended in
May.
45. So that winter, November, December.
Oh, I see, you're talking November of 1945.
Right.
Okay.
And so one day, the guy comes down from the early room, says, "Rappleye, get ready, you're gonna go to college." So I got my stuff and they give me they cut a trip ticket out so you could use it on the public transportation. And I went to Biarritz University. Biarritz University was put together by Robert Hutchins. Robert Hutchins was the chancellor of the University of Chicago, and he was chancellor when he was 28 years old. So he was a child prodigy, and he was a leader. As a matter of fact, he gathered up the so-called great books. And if you get one of the great books, look in the front of it, that Robert Hutchins was one of the persons that gathered that information, decided which books were great and which were not. And so I'm down at, I'm down in Biarritz, and I'm in a hotel, and I wake up in the morning and I can hear swoosh, swoosh. I'd never been on the seashore before, and the waves were coming in, and you could hear the waves washing against the shore. Like, God, man, this is good going. And so I went to college there for 10 weeks. I had a professor from Colgate, I had one from Iowa, and one from New York City. I earned 9 hours, and I put those on my junior college curriculum or credit.
So you transferred over?
Yeah, and I transferred over. I believe that's one of the reasons that I got into law school with 60 hours, and I really had 69 hours at that point in time.
Well, great.
That was that.
Back to the when you were a guard at this prison, were the prisoners treated reasonably well, or was there a lot of physical abuse?
They were not treated well.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was cold in Belgium in the wintertime, freezing, and there'd be snow on the ground. And they didn't have much they didn't have any, they were in these steel quonsets, and they didn't have heat in there. So it must have been like in a tunnel. It was as cold as inside as it was outside.
Yeah.
So they weren't much better than soldiers that were up on the front because it was so darn cold. In Brussels, they didn't do the training that they did down when they moved it to Marseille. When we got down to Marseille, that was a real training. They made them train.
Now, when you say training, you mean marching?
Marching, just.
Why were they training them? Just to.
They wanted to have. They wanted to break them down.
Yes.
They wanted to break them down so that they would be able to build them back up. I guess.
Yes.
And the guy that ran that camp, he had Captain Capps. He had come up short on his payroll when he was in Italy, and yet he was the commandant of the camp, and he doled out the meanness, and he was a mean son of a gun. So.
I mean, did you see physical abuse? Fists on people?
No, I didn't see that.
Just they didn't get as good a warmth, and they were marched.
Up in Belgium, it was cold. When we got down to Marseille, it was like going south. We thought, we're going south to play ball. When we got our ball gloves and stuff out and we started playing ball down there, we thought we were going training in the south like they did in professional baseball. You know, it was,
I see. Yeah, spring training.
It was, and then we used to go into Marseille, and Marseille is an ugly port city. It's dirty, and I wouldn't recommend. And there's no good architecture there. There's no beautiful church, or there's no beautiful statuary, or there's nothing that you'd want to go back and see again. I would never want to go back to Marseille.
Okay. Did you see any, because you were right in the middle of Germany during the end of the war, did you see any, or Belgium or Holland, did you see any collaborators women with their heads shaved, that type of thing.
No, never saw that. I think that happened mostly in France,
Okay, yeah.
and it happened a little bit in Holland when the airborne jumped in Holland. They thought the war was over.
The
They thought
Holland
the war
people.
was over, and
The
so they
Dutch.
started shaving. I suppose they were prostitutes.
Yeah, well, or they had German boyfriends.
Well, whatever. And then we had to give it up. The Germans came back. I imagine somebody got punished.
Yeah, for punishing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Belgium, Brussels was, I stayed there in that wintertime. That was a great city and had not been destroyed, excepting a little bombing at the railroad yard. Otherwise, Belgium was just as good as ever.
Okay.
And give the Germans credit. They didn't destroy Paris, they didn't destroy Brussels, and they didn't destroy Rome. And they could have by just a flick of the switch. And
Sure.
we bombed every damn straw stack, bridge, whatever in Germany, and even when it was beyond the necessity, the Air Force just kept on bombing, and I thought, boy, oh boy, that's almost a war crime, what they did to Leipzig and Dresden.
Dresden, yeah. Well, Cologne was bombed right into.
But that was during the war. That
Yeah.
was
Oh,
early.
you mean afterwards?
Well, it was near the end. There was no military value to Leipzig or to Dresden. It was a war against the civilians. I
Okay.
guess they killed a bunch of them.
I know they sure did in Dresden. Well, Bill, can you think of anything else you'd like to share with the public about your memories as an 18 and 19-year-old at the very end of the war?
Well, what I would say is that this country is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Because I got 36 months of GI Bill from this, and I used it to get a pretty good education from a good university. And without that, I probably would have, I would, whatever, pump gas or whatever. I don't know what
sure.
I would have done.
Sure.
So that was a great adventure. I had a lot of fun. I was in Europe. When I came home, I could speak Army French. I could speak Army German. Not according to the book, of course, but just so I could.
Kind of a broken French
so I
and
could
German.
I could sell cigarettes pretty good because I did, and I didn't smoke, and therefore I had a package of a 10-pack or a 12-pack of a carton of cigarettes to sell every week, and I lived off that for all the time I was in Brussels, and I lived well. I always I played a lot of billiards in Brussels, and they had a billiard table there. Business people playing billiards. It was I don't mean pocket pool. I mean billiards.
Yes.
And those balls were ivory. Of course, the Belgians had probably killed enough elements to make a few extra billiard balls. So I feel that I come along at a good time, and I'm very well satisfied. If I want to go to the Veterans Hospital today, I can go. If they find me in the ditch somewhere and I don't have any insurance, they'll take me in over at the Veterans. I don't say it's acme of care, but it's adequate for me, but I don't need any extra care. So I feel that the government has taken care of us well, really well. And I think that with the GI Bill, and I never took advantage of the loan part or anything like that, but just the GI Bill was, today it would be worth $1 million.
Sure.
Because you go to Albion and it costs you $5,000 or $6,000 a year to go to Albion. It's just a little school over there.
Yeah.
And so I figure I did my duty and I got well paid for it. And I'm not a professional veteran. I do have a lifetime membership in the VFW. I've never been to a meeting, And I've joined the American Legion once, and I never went to a meeting after that. I never kept up my part of my membership.
Yeah.
So I'm not a professional veteran, but I just do say that as a veteran, I think I've been well taken care of.
Okay.
And I think this country is a great country to do that.
Well, you heard the Russian soldier the other day in that interview, and at the end, the only words I understood him say was, "God bless America."
Yeah, yeah.
Weren't you at the
Yeah.
program with the Russian soldier?
Yeah, they all want to come over here.
Yes.
There's got to be a reason.
There's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I just want to thank you, first of all, for your service. I was born in 1946, and I've always felt that I've had a safe, very, very good living life. Not a living, not like work, but life, because of what your generation did. And I want to thank you for taking time to share this history with me.
Well, I'm pleased that you asked me to do this, and I don't know if I've added anything. The main event of my being over there was leading the Russians, and Don Ains writes about that in his book. And other than that, I think, the French had a great saying: a simple soldat, simple soldat. If you're a low-grade enlisted man, you're a simple soldat. You just fit into a slot, which is all right with me, because I didn't aspire to be a captain or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate it.
You bet. No problem.